In that case, we'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is September 22nd of the year 2020. My name is Rick Geller. I'm Special Magistrate appointed by the City Council to hear code enforcement cases pursuant to Article 6 of the City Code, as well as Florida Statutes Chapter 162. This is a quasi-judicial evidentiary proceeding. The burden of proof is on the city to show by a preponderance of evidence that a code enforcement violation, a code violation exists. In other words, I will determine, based on the evidence presented to me this evening, whether or not it is more likely than not that a violation has occurred. The alleged violator will have an opportunity to submit any rebuttal or exculpatory evidence, including any testimony. At my discretion, I may allow any member of the public with relevant personal knowledge to testify, even if not called by either the city or the responding party. Anyone who would like to testify should sign the sign-in sheet, which is what I'm indicating, what I'm pointing to. Upon request, an alleged violator may ask relevant and material questions of any city witness, and the city may ask relevant and material questions of any witness for the responding party. I may exclude any evidence that I deem to be irrelevant, immaterial, or repetitious. If I determine that a code violation has occurred, I may issue an order requiring that the violator take whatever steps are necessary to bring the violation into compliance. I may require compliance within a certain period of time, after which a fine will be assessed. In determining the amount of any fine, I will consider the gravity of the violation, any actions taken by the violator to correct the violation, and any previous violations committed by the violator. Under the City Code and the Florida statutes, I may assess and order the payment of a fine of up to $250 per day for a first violation, and up to $500 per day for a repeat violation, or if the violation is irreparable or irreversible, a fine of up to $5,000, as well as the cost of any repairs made by the city. At the conclusion of each hearing, I will issue findings of fact and conclusions of law based on the evidence of record. I will thereafter issue an order both here on the bench and in writing. The city may record a certified copy of an order imposing a fine, which will become a lien against the land where the violation occurs, as well as upon any other real or personal property owned by the violator. Any order that I issue may be appealed by any party to the Circuit Court for Brevard County, Florida, within 30 days. It is the responsibility of the appealing party to obtain a record of the proceedings, and appeal is limited to the record presented before me. The first order of business is first to establish the next meeting, which is October the 27th at 2020, same time, 6 p.m. And then the approval of the meeting minutes from June 23rd, 2020. And I've reviewed the minutes, and thank you, Ms. Roth, for the very detailed work. And I hereby approve of the minutes, and we'll provide them to you after the hearing. Anyone who wishes to provide any testimony, would you please stand up and be sworn in? You swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Thank you. The first case on the agenda is case number 2020-118. I'll let the city proceed.
That should be 188.
188. Okay, it was mistyped in the agenda.
I'll correct that.
Thank you very much. Case 180.
Chris Robinson. This is case number 2188. Property owner is Jeffrey Dugan. The address is 7306 Poinsettia Avenue, Cape Canaveral. The legal and the parcel ID are up on the board, and this violation is for property maintenance. It's a notification summary. The notice of violation was sent 7/16/2020, return receipt 7/20/2020 to Jeffrey Dugan.
I'm sorry, Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
you're speaking a little fast for me there. The notice of the violation was what date again?
Notice of violation was sent on 7/16/2020.
Thank you.
Return receipt was 7/20/2020. Notice of hearing was sent 8/25/2020. Return receipt was 8/26/2020. This is an eagle view from the Brevard County Property Appraiser site of the property in question, highlighted in red. On May 14th, 2020, staff received a complaint of coolers and buckets full of old stagnant water creating a severe mosquito problem. The property is also overgrown and has a 3-yard yard. Contact was made with the property owner, Jeffrey Dugan. Complaint and observed violations were explained to him. He said he was aware of the issues. Scroll down.
Take your time.
I'm sorry. He said he was aware of the issues and will work on cleaning it up. Mr. Dugan would not allow staff to enter his property at this time. The photograph that you see up there is a photograph of the driveway just in front of his front door next to his parked car. On June 8th, 2020, staff received another complaint from the neighbors to the east of the property. They stated the property is severely overgrown with trash and debris throughout the yard. There are also coolers and buckets full of stagnant water creating a mosquito problem. This picture of the backyard taken from the neighbor's yard. On August 27th, staff made contact with Mr. Dugan and explained that no improvement has been seen and the next step is to go to the special magistrate. Mr. Dugan said he is working on the property but is having vehicle troubles and is only capable of working in the yard for a few hours due to the heat. Staff informed him to return the day before the hearing to observe his progress. This photograph is again of the backyard from the property, from the neighboring property to the east. This is the north side of the house in the backyard taken from the complainant's yard. This is the backyard and fence along the south side of the backyard taken from the complainant's yard. This is the east side of the property taken from the complainant's yard. This is from the front yard taken from the sidewalk on the west side of the property. This cactus is right on the sidewalk. I'm standing on the sidewalk when I took this photograph. And this is that cactus that I'm referring to. It's the front yard taken from the sidewalk. You can barely see into the yard due to the obnoxious growth. And the property representative is here today to discuss it.
And before I hear from Mr. Dugan or Mr. Duggan, how do you pronounce your name? I want to pronounce your name correctly. Is Mr. Dugan or Mr. Duggan? Dugan, thank you, sir. The overgrowth on the city sidewalk, does the city have an ordinance that regulates who is to control the right-of-way when there's vegetation that's overgrowing the right-of-way?
So if it's in the right-of-way, the city would take care of it. But if it's an overgrown on a improved property, even on the other side of the sidewalk, that becomes the responsibility of the owner. So this is improved property, so it would be the responsibility of the owner to take care of it. But this is not anything that's on the other side of the sidewalk or anything. This is all growing from his property and starting to hang over. So it becomes his responsibility because it's starting well onto his property, all of the growth. There's nothing that's impeding the sidewalk at this time. It's just all obnoxious overgrowth. You can't see the house. You can't see into the property. You can't see anything. You can see that in the photographs.
All right. And then there was also a photograph you showed of a fence with missing slats. And is that fence belong to a neighbor or to Mr. Dugan?
No, sir, that's Mr. Dugan. That's on his property.
Okay, I did not see any notice of violation concerning the fence.
No, there was nothing about the fence.
Okay, all right. So I'm confining my findings then to the overgrowth and the trash that is apparent
Yes, it's
from the photographs.
It's the overgrowth, the trash and debris throughout the yard, and the mosquitoes that are being created because of the buckets and coolers that are full of stagnant water.
Okay, and I did not notice any buckets or coolers. Were they apparent in any of the photographs?
Yes, sir.
Could you back up and
go back through them? This first one right here, this is from the sidewalk. If you look, there's to the left of the photograph. It's probably a pot from an old plant that's full of stagnant water.
Okay.
And then in the background, you can see other buckets and bowls and coolers throughout the yard. And there's another one here, all up against the house, all of the trash and debris.
Right, but if you just again, I'm looking for any of these coolers that you referred to, or these buckets.
Zoom in on this for you. I don't know if you can see any better. I'm trying to zoom in on some of these locations.
Well, it looks like over on the right-hand side there appears to be something in the shape of some sort of pot.
Yeah, so there's a let's see my cursor. Can't see it, but there's a.
It looks like it's in the center of the screen.
There's one there, and then just above it, there's another one. But throughout the yard, there's coolers. It's just very difficult. I wasn't allowed on the property,
Sure.
So I'm having to take photos the best I can. But while I was standing there talking to Mr. Dugan, there is a clear mosquito issue on that property coming up. It is big.
All right, were the mosquitoes harassing you?
Yeah.
Anything further, Mr. Robinson?
No, sir.
All right. Mr. Dugan, would you care to step forward and if you would please, for the record, state your name and address?
Sorry?
Yes, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Jeffrey Dugan, 7306 Sunset Avenue, Cape Canaveral.
All right, you may proceed, sir.
Okay, not really denying charges, because even though you can't see it, some of the things we discussed, I am not denying there's a bucket to collecting water for me to water vegetables with. Those have been cleaned up. 99% of everything in the backyard and the front yard is cleaned up. The pot keeps running back saying it's full of water, but it's full of dirt. Normally there was a pea plant in there. It just didn't happen at that time. The picture of the front yard, you just managed to catch me not there when I was working on several projects. So yeah, it was a big mess. Apparently I will not be working. When you call it overgrowth, I call it hedge. But once upon a time, that's the way code read was either a fence or a hedge, and I'm not allowed a fence. So I put what fence or row and become thick enough to become a hedge. There's something more uniform, but you can't work properly.
And anything else, sir?
I've been working on the property. I'm 95% there. I intend to continue. This has just happened because life has not gone my way. I've been unemployed. I was taking care of my elderly mother until she passed away. I took a job which kept me from the house 14 hours a day. Until that ended, I got unemployed, which is why I'm actually able to do this. Everything's been going right, so I was happy to make money. That's largely how it occurred. I went to him, get things up, and his line was hope everything goes better, and I'll make money elsewhere.
Sir, how much time do you reasonably need to have the property, all the trash and debris removed from the property?
Really, at this point, what I have is tools in there that you probably would not agree with, but I would like some more time just to keep pecking at it.
I think we need.
Out going away.
I think we need more than. I think we need more than just pecking at it. I think we need all the trash and debris removed.
Well,
Okay. But with the aim should be complete removal. So I think I think what we all want to see is that the all the trash and debris is removed. We want your property to come into compliance with the code. And then as far as overgrowth, did you understand the concern of the city about the cactus plant that was overgrowing the sidewalk?
Trying to keep that out of the sidewalk area. When I put them there, if I was having issues with people who put into the vegetable garden, I also put a buffer of mother tongue.
A buffer of what?
Of mother tongue. It's less plain prayer.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
the cactuses seem to ignore my idea of a buffer. And yes, they do reach over.
Okay. So I think that is a principal concern because it affects the city's right of way where people can walk on that sidewalk. And then are there areas of grass that are overgrown as well in all of this?
No. I took a large section of my grass, cleared it out, returned plastic, rocks, and planted clay out.
Okay.
So in the last little section, I thought was going to stay, and since been shaded out.
Okay.
Mostly I have dirt and rock and various kinds of food or flower nature.
All right. Very good. Anything else, sir?
No, I don't really know.
Okay.
I saw
Well,
95%.
very good. Well,
Pushing.
well, I appreciate your intent to bring your property into compliance. I just have a further question for the city, Mr. Robinson. What, in terms of the overgrowth and Mr. Dugan, Mr. Dugan perceives the plantings as providing him privacy. Where does the city draw the line between overgrowth versus what should and should not be trimmed back? Can you give us some guidance?
You have to. One of the issues was his front door. He has trimmed it up since the last time. The front door, I couldn't even walk to the front door without having to significantly duck to get underneath. It looked like it was an areca palm or something he had in the front yard, and I could barely make it to the front door. He's since trimmed that up, but the biggest issue was all the creeping vines he had along the backyard, along the fence, through the trees, that were starting to make their way into other people's property. The fence that you had originally talked about, I didn't cite him anything for that, but there was vines all over it, and those vines are going to start to deteriorate that fence even more. So those were the types of things that the city wants him to trim back, to get off of other people's fence lines, to keep it from growing, just to make it look more kept looking. It's not so much the trees, those oak trees in there, that we're not talking about trimming those. It's all the underbrush that just seems to be growing out of control and into other people's yards.
So for example, in the photograph that we're looking at right now, would the city want some of what we now see trimmed back?
Yes, that's growing on the neighbor's yard. I'm standing in the neighbor's yard, and that's right there, and that needs to be trimmed up just a little bit to keep it from growing into their property.
Okay, so we're talking about the plants below the oak trees.
Yes, I think it was probably a little better.
because I want to give Mr. Dugan enough notice as to what is truly expected of him as far as
Yes.
trimming back the overgrowth.
Here's the white fence,
Mhm.
and you can see it's not as bad right there now, but you can see to the left of that photograph, it's kind of growing over into the neighbor's yard. And I've seen him pulling a lot of vines out of the property, so I think he's addressed most of it. That's something that I'll revisit when I do my follow-up inspection. But that's pretty much what it is. And then this picture right here, you can see all of this stuff growing up. This cactus right here, it's just a little obnoxious. It's right along the sidewalk. It's right there. It could be a safety concern with people going by, and we believe that needs to be kept up a little bit better.
Okay, so for the cactus right here, how far back from the sidewalk would you want him to trim it?
At least 2 feet.
2 feet from the sidewalk.
Yes.
Okay. All right, having heard the evidence, I'm going to issue some findings of fact.
Before you start that,
Yes,
would you
sir.
like to hear the city's recommendation?
I would like to hear the city's recommendation. Sure.
Based on the testimony and evidence submitted at this hearing, staff respectfully request the magistrate find the respondents in violation as set forth in the notice of violation, and give the respondent until October 22nd, 2020 to come into compliance, or a fine be imposed in the amount of $100 for the first day and $50 every day thereafter until compliance is confirmed by the code enforcement officer. All costs associated with the enforcement of violation will be posted.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from the city?
No, sir.
Well, I find, as a matter of fact, that the respondent, Mr. Dugan, is the owner of the subject property, that a notice of violation was given to Mr. Dugan on July 16, 2020, and that a receipt of the notice was received by the city on July 20th, 2020. Notice of this hearing was properly provided on August 25th, 2020 to Mr. Dugan, and in fact the city received a receipt that the notice was received on August 26, 2020. The property does evidence overgrowth of plants and vines, as well as filth, debris, garbage, trash, and refuse. And there appear to be at least a bucket or two filled with water, or having sufficient water so as to cause mosquito breeding and infestation. And I appreciate that Mr. Dugan has undertaken efforts to begin addressing all of this. The yard is unkempt. There are weeds and growing substantially higher than 6 inches. They're causing a blight on the neighborhood. So I find that the subject property is in violation of Section 34-96B of the City Code, which states that the owner of every single-family dwelling shall be responsible for maintaining the exterior in a clean, sanitary, and safe condition. I find the violation of Section 34-96D, as in David, of the City Code, which states that exterior property areas of all premises shall be kept free of all nuisances, litter, rubbish, debris, objects, material, or conditions which may create a health or fire hazard. Exterior property areas shall be free of unsanitary conditions which constitute blighting or deteriorating influence on the neighborhood. Lawns, landscaping, driveways, and fences shall be maintained so as not to constitute a blighting or deteriorating effect in the neighborhood. I would point out that the city has not given a notice of violation regarding the fence, but I would encourage Mr. Dugan to address the fence where you have missing slats, and the condition of that fence could be a problem down the road. I do find that the property is in violation of section 34-97 of the city code, which states that the owner of every single family dwelling shall maintain premises free of hazards, which include but are not limited to brush, weeds, broken glass, obnoxious growths, accumulations of filth, garbage, trash, refuse, debris. Also, shall keep the premises free of excessive accumulation of stormwater. That would cover the couple buckets that remain, which could be also a source of infestation under this provision of the code. I find the property in violation of section 34-99 of the city code, which states in pertinent part that the landscaping criteria shall include but not be limited to: 1, all landscaped areas shall be maintained to present a neat and orderly appearance. I find a violation of section 34-121 of the city code, which states in pertinent part that the presence of weeds, brush, and rank vegetation, excluding, this is not including, shade trees, ornamental shrubs, fruit trees, and cultivated wildflowers, are a menace to the public. Excluding those things are a menace to the public safety, health, and welfare. And then I also find a violation of section 34-122, which prohibits public nuisances. And this provision states that all yards on improved property shall be properly maintained in a neat and attractive manner, and maintained further in a manner such that weeds and other rank vegetation shall not exceed 6 inches in height. I'm giving Mr. Dugan 30 days from today's date, which brings us to October 22nd, 2020, in which to correct these violations which have been pointed out to him. And so the order is to trim the overgrowth of plants and vines, especially those that are approaching neighboring properties, and to remove any weeds or rank vegetation, mow it so it does not exceed 6 inches in height, to remove the remaining filth, debris, garbage, and trash from the property, and to remove any remaining coolers, buckets, or any other receptacles that are filled with water or have sufficient water so as to provide a breeding ground for mosquitoes. I'm ordering Mr. Dugan to please provide notice to the City Code Enforcement Division of the Community Development Department that he has corrected the violations. If Mr. Dugan should fail to correct the violations within this time period set forth, the Code Enforcement Officer may schedule a compliance hearing before me, and that the city, in that case, shall give a due notice in accordance with law to Mr. Dugan to provide him with another opportunity to appear and present testimony and evidence as to whether the violations are continuing on the subject property. At that point, not today, but at that point, if I find that the violations have not been corrected, a fine will be entered in the amount of $100 for the first day and $50 per day thereafter until the violations are corrected, plus any of the city's enforcement costs. I would just remind everyone that any fines imposed for non-compliance may become a lien in favor of the city. on the subject property and upon any other real or personal property of the respondent. That's all I have on that matter. So, thank you very much, Mr. Dugan. I hope you make good efforts in correcting what has to be done. So, thank you, sir. The next matter that we have is what we call a Massey hearing. This is a hearing where we determine whether a violation that I previously ordered to be corrected, whether or not it has in fact been corrected. And if it's not been corrected, at this point, I would issue a fine. And so the next item on the agenda is case 2020-70, and that's the City of Cape Canaveral versus Rita M. Goldberg Life Estate. Please just state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. John Mayberry, Code Enforcement Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayberry.
Yes, sir. Stated is case number 20-070, Rita M. Goldberg Life Estate. And sir, to forestall what happened last time, if you'll just tell me when you're through looking at the slide, because I think I got kind of out of order with you last time. Just let me know when you're ready and we'll move on to the next one.
Sure thing. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. This, again, is the physical address of the property, the legal description, parcel ID number. The violation was for property maintenance, section 302.7, 302, section 34-96. And the notification summary was the finding of facts, conclusions of law and order, was sent certified mail, return receipt on 6/30/2020. The property was also posted on the same day in accordance with Florida Statute 162.12. The notice of compliance for the Massey hearing tonight was sent certified mail on 9/3/2020, as well as the property being posted on the same day.
Very good. Proceed.
This is the aerial view from the property appraiser's office of the property. Okay. This is the case summary. This case was presented during the magistrate hearing on June 22nd, 2020. The property was found in violation of the notice of violation, and the respondent was given until July 22nd, 2020 to bring the property into compliance, or a fine in the amount of $100 for the first day and $50 every day thereafter will be placed on the property. On July 23rd, 2020, a site visit was conducted and staff observed the property was still in violation. On September 22nd, 2020, a site visit was conducted and staff observed the property was still in violation.
Okay.
This is a photograph of the
Just back up 1 second.
Yes,
The inspection was September. So the site inspection was in fact today.
Yes, I did one today.
Very good.
This is a photograph of the posting of the notice of hearing, the compliance hearing. There's pictures of the south side of the property, the fence there, which remain in the same condition they were when I presented the case in June. Okay. This is the southeast corner of the property, on the outside of the fence, just indicative of trash just laying about the property.
So this is on this side of the fence. This is within the property.
No, so this is the outside of the property. I'm actually on the city right away.
On the city right of way. So we're looking at
Yes, sir.
at the Goldberg property, right?
Yes, sir. And just to refresh from the last meeting, on the other side of this fence is the pool. That this is where the fence starts falling apart around the pool. And again, I apologize for the lack of clarity of the picture, but this picture is straight on from the outside looking in. That is the pool that's open there, and there are, as you can see in the previous photo, the fence has various slats missing, and the fence itself is just in a general state of disrepair.
And I recall from the last hearing that there was concern that a child would be able to enter the property through where slats are missing in the fence.
Yes, sir. A lot of them are just propped up. And, you know, at first glance, just walking by, it looks like it's a fence, but if you walk up to it, they prop them up. They've got old pallets leaning up against to give the appearance of the fence being solid. But yes, sir. I know when I was a young kid, it would have been a problem to get inside.
You may proceed.
And this, as from the last meeting, this is the backyard, the grass and overgrowth of vegetation in excess of 6 inches. And I'm standing, taking this over the, I can see over the fence, so I'm standing, taking it down.
You may proceed.
There's no property representative here for this meeting, and I would say, the only thing left is staff recommendation.
All right. And sir, what is your recommendation?
Based on the testimony and evidence submitted at this hearing, staff respectfully requests the magistrate find the respondents in violation of the June 23rd, 2020 magistrate order and immediately impose a fine retroactive to the original compliance date of July 22nd, 2020 in the amount of $100 for the first day and $50 every day thereafter until compliance is confirmed by the code enforcement officer and all costs associated with the enforcement of the violation being imposed.
$100 for the first day, $50 thereafter, retroactive. Great. All right. Seeing that there is no representative for the property owner, I will go ahead and make some findings. On June 22nd, 2020, I ordered the respondent, Rita M. Goldberg Life Estate, to correct the city code violations by no later than July 22nd, 2020. We're now 2 months later. I memorialized in my order, which was dated June 24th, 2020, which was served on the respondent on June 30th, 2020. The order was to secure the pool with a compliant fence and self-latching gate in accordance with property maintenance standards set forth in sections 302.7 and 303.2 of the International Property Maintenance Code. I ordered the respondent to clean, sanitize, and treat the swimming pool, pool walls, pool deck in accordance with the property maintenance standards set forth in section 303.1 of the International Property Maintenance Code. Let me stop there, and were you able to observe the same violation with the code of your most recent inspection?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I further ordered the respondent mow and trim all vegetation on the subject property so that no rank vegetation exceeds 6 inches in height in accordance with the property maintenance standards set forth in section 34-122A of the city code, and that all litter, rubbish, and debris shall be removed pursuant to section 34-96D of the city code. Further, I ordered the respondent to provide notice to the city Code Enforcement Division that she has corrected the violations. So based on the evidence and the testimony presented this evening, I find that the respondent has not provided any notice to the City Code Enforcement Division of any correction of violations. I find that the city lawfully inspected the subject property from outside the fenced-in area today, September 22nd, 2020, and did not observe correction of any of the violations. The respondent has not maintained the exterior of the property consistent with property maintenance standards set forth in the International Property Maintenance Code, section 302.7. Respondent has not maintained the swimming pool in the backyard consistent with the property maintenance and standards established by the International Property Maintenance Code, section 303.1 and 303.2. The fence surrounding the pool remains in disrepair. It is dilapidated and fallen in areas. Many slats are missing, which could allow a child access to the swimming pool. The unsecured pool is a nuisance, posing an imminent and continuing threat to public health and safety because a child who cannot swim could gain entrance. The water remains untreated, and there is mold and mildew present on the walls of the swimming pool. Grasses and weeds on the subject property exceed 6 inches in height, and garbage is strewn across the yard, visible from the right-of-way. These conditions are also a nuisance. I also find that a notice of this hearing was provided by certified mail and by posting on the respondent on September 3rd, 2020. All notices I find are in compliance with Section 2-253 of the City Code, as well as Florida Statute Section 162.06 and 162.12. I find that the city adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, the 2018 edition, at Section 82-221 of the City Code. Respondent is the conclusion of law that the respondent and the subject property remain in violation of Section 304.1 of the International Property Maintenance Code, which states that the exterior of a structure shall be maintained in good repair, structurally sound and sanitary, so as not to pose a threat to public health, safety, or welfare. Respondent and the subject property remain in violation of Section 302.7 of the Code, which states that accessory structures, including detached fences and walls, shall be maintained structurally sound and in good repair. Respondent and subject property remain in violation of Section 303.1 of the Code, which states that swimming pools shall be maintained in a clean and sanitary manner and in good repair. I find that the respondent and the subject property remain in violation of Section 303.2 of the Code, which states that private swimming pools, hot tubs, and spas containing water more than 24 inches in depth shall be completely surrounded by a fence or barrier of not less than 48 inches in height above the finished ground level, measured from the side of the barrier away from the pool. Gates and doors in such barrier shall be self-closing and self-latching. I find that the respondent and subject property remain in violation of Section 34-96B of the City Code, which states that exterior property areas of all premises shall be kept free of all nuisances, litter, rubbish, debris, objects, material, or conditions which may create a health or fire hazard. Exterior property areas shall be free of unsanitary conditions which constitute a blighting or deteriorating influence on the neighborhood. Lawns, landscaping, and fences shall be maintained so as not to constitute a blighting or deteriorating effect on the neighborhood. Respondent and the subject property remain in violation of Section 34-122 of the City Code, which states that all grass areas and yards on improved property shall be properly maintained in a neat and attractive manner and kept free of dead plants, refuse, debris. Should be maintained further in such a manner that grass, weeds, and other rank vegetation shall not exceed 6 inches in height. Respondent, I find, has had a reasonable time in which to correct the violations identified in the notice of violation and in my prior order dated June 24th, 2020. And so I'm ordering that a fine is hereby assessed on this property in the amount of $100 for the first day, $50 each day thereafter. This is retroactive to my order of June 24, 2020. In order to abate the accruing fines, the respondent must correct the violations identified in this order and in my order dated June 24, 2020, and must inform the City Code Enforcement Division of such correction. In addition, I'm authorizing the city manager or his designee to expend funds performing emergency repairs and other remedial work to abate the nuisances that I have identified. which I have found pose an imminent and continuing threat to public health and safety, and any expense incurred by the city in performing such repairs or remedial work, including contractor and material costs, administrative overhead, attorney's fees, and other related costs, shall be subject to reimbursement from the property owner. The city may impose a lien on the subject property for any such costs. Any fines imposed may become a lien in favor of the city on the subject property and upon any other real or personal property of the respondent. And that's all I have on that. So moving on to the third and final matter, it's another Massey hearing. And I have on the agenda, it's case number 2020-102. Is that correct?
Correct.
And sir, you may proceed.
Yes, sir. Case number 20-102, Lisa D. Taylor. First slide, again, case number 20-102, address 111 Justamere Road, Cape Canaveral. Legal address, legal description, pardon me, and a parcel ID number available on the slide. Violations for property maintenance, section 302.7, accessory structures, section 303.1, swimming pools of the International Property Maintenance Code.
All right, sir.
Notification summary, finding of facts, conclusions of law and order were sent certified mail to Ms. Lisa D. Taylor, property owner, as well as the property being posted in accordance with Florida Statute 162.12 on 7/3/2020. The notice of compliance for the Massey hearing was sent certified mail, as well as the property posted on 9/3/2020.
All right, you proceed. Next slide.
This is again the aerial view from the property appraiser's office.
And we discussed last time that
Yes,
the border is
Right.
not quite where it needs to be.
Yes, sir.
And so I assume that the swimming pool is actually should be within the red border. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct? And would the border then go to the edge of the concrete around the pool? Whereabouts should that border?
Yes, sir. To the end of the wall there.
All right.
Case summary. This case was presented during the magistrate hearing on June 22nd, 2020. The property was found in violation of the notice of violation, and the respondent was given until July 22nd, 2020 to bring the property into compliance for a fine in the amount of $100 for the first day and $50 every day thereafter will be placed on the property. On July 23rd, 2020, a site visit was conducted and staff observed the property was still in violation. On September 22nd, 2020, a site visit was conducted and staff observed the property was still in violation.
Okay.
A photograph of the posting of the notice of hearing. And I was out on Friday, the 18th, September the 18th, and the pool had significantly more water. This photograph was taken approximately 2 o'clock this afternoon. So they have been working on it. Okay. This is some of the equipment they've used to work and showed they're cleaning up. However, this is the top portion of the wall which was sided in the original case.
And so there's some discoloration that
Yes,
remains
sir.
on the wall that
Yes.
would have to be.
And the following picture will kind of elaborate on that.
Okay.
And here's the outside of the wall.
And is that new paint? That is.
On the south side, yes, sir. That's the adjoining property.
Okay.
That's his side of the wall. It's painted. And we do have a property representative from the property owner here.
Very good.
Like to speak.
Very good. And then the on this side of the wall where you're standing when you took the photograph, where there's overgrowth, is that part of
Yes, sir.
the Taylor property?
Yes, sir.
And is this what are we looking at? This pathway looks like.
This is actually one of the unimproved streets in town, just right across P1A here, off the baseball over there.
So is this, this overgrowth, is this the responsibility of the Taylors, or is this the city's right of way?
No, so that's the property owners.
Is that something that we identified back in June?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for reminding me. You may proceed.
As I stated, we do have a representative from the property owner here tonight. Who would like to give evidence.
In my review of what we were looking at in June, I do not see a reference to the overgrowth there.
I stand corrected. You're right, sir. Not on this case. No, sir.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay. All right.
No, that was something discussion I had with the property.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Just in view of their efforts to remediate what we've seen here, does the city have any further recommendations as far as
Yes, sir.
when you would like to see it
I
completed?
received a phone call from Ms. White just prior to 5 o'clock this afternoon. I didn't know that they were still. She said that they were just finishing up. So apparently, she said she had pictures because of the hour. We didn't have time to make copies or anything. But I know that they have gotten all the water out of the pool and they're going to park it, from what I understand. But she's here.
Okay. So I'll hear then from the property representative. Okay. Could you just please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Michelle White, 418 Adams Avenue, for 3
Okay. And what is your connection to Ms. Taylor?
I am the property manager here in the state of Florida. She's at state.
And what is your? Do you have a company name?
FGT, MGT, LLC.
Well, that's a lot of.
It's a lot.
FGT.
FGT, MGT, LLC.
FGT, MGT, LC,
LLC.
LLC. Thank you. Okay. All right, Ms. White. Please update me on the efforts that are being made to come to compliance.
Yeah. So when this, the tenants that moved into this residence was in April, and they were moving in as is for a reduction in rent to do some improvements on the property because it had been sitting for over a year and a half with different compliance issues that we had, and unfortunately enough, there was no maintenance on site. It was just me. I was kind of doing everything. So I allowed these tenants to move in, which now has become they're not paying anything, and they haven't completely income, so it's a little difficult to try to pull all my resources as a main person to try to incorporate things like that.
So let me just, if I can interrupt you, just so I understand correctly, that the property was leased to these tenants as is with an expectation that they would be responsible for making the different corrections and
Right.
cleanup.
The gentleman worked previously for a food company, and that was part of the bargain for them to move in, and that he was at school because it was almost full time at that time. And we hundreds of dollars shopping and for it to return a couple days later because we never put some pump in it, or didn't turn the pump on, or various other ignorant issues that went on with this property.
So is it fair to say then that the remedial work that we've seen is due to your efforts as opposed to the tenants' efforts?
Yes, sir. I'm
Okay.
one maintenance person, which I also love to do. Because I was out there, even today, in my shoes, fixing the rest of the issues that we have. We were in the process of moving to different tenants' house, but unfortunately, that's everything is going on right now. So we're collecting money and trying to remedy the situation. So that's in addition to 2 other properties, which we completely cleared up money back in the past month.
Very good.
So I do have pictures. It's nothing but maybe 2 inches of sludge, the water in the bottom of the pool as of 15 minutes ago.
Okay. Are we able to broadcast those pictures in any way, or is this something that
It's on my personal cell phone.
it's on your? Okay. We don't have any kind of Elmo device or anything like that. I'm going to put on my mask, and we just
Thank you.
ask if you could provide me with the phone so I could take a look. Is it more than one picture?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 pictures, and I end up with my kids. If you scroll to the if you scroll to the left
Very
each
good.
time, you'll see all 9 pictures. I have progression photos over the last 2 months to where you can see that the pool is more than halfway full with green sludge, and you can see the attempts that we have brought it down and cleaned it out completely to where it was clear several different times. Several $100 worth of that when we weren't getting a call. It would not have been this much sludge, the change of the sludge that's left there today, and the rain from the past couple of days hadn't really hurt us, and that's why we like to target, because the tenants, one, do not have money to full time going there, money to maintain the pool is not code. So that's been.
Would you like me to put some? Would you like to see later on this? I'll give you on that.
Thank you. I'm sorry that I have to.
I'll let. That's fine, and I.
Inches of sludge. At this point, there is no water. It is just it's just typically the dirt and the residue that has been there. But we have power washed everything there. We have cleaned up and did all the other appliances. We have power washed the wall on numerous occasions and cleaned the inside of it, as well as bought a pump for it, and I have done everything that I could at this pump.
What I see are good faith efforts to remediate the issue, and let me ask the city: would it be appropriate to, especially and the circumstances in which they have a tenant who they cannot evict because of the freeze on residential evictions, and despite the lack of rental income, they are making good faith efforts to come into compliance. That I would suggest, and I'll get the city's position, that we table this matter for another 30 days and allow the property manager to finish her efforts. And at that point, if there's still an issue, then we can proceed with a massive hearing. But I'm inclined to give her some additional time in view of the efforts that have been made so far. What's the city's position?
Thanks, Ron. Pleasure. I'm fine with it. We're definitely much further down the road than we were Friday. So Friday we were about half full. Yes,
Goes with the job.
I'd like to see the wall addressed because these were complaints. These were the staff giving complaints. These were actually all the complaints that we had. And I want to make sure that we say we did everything that we could to make sure everything was right there.
So that we're able to hopefully avoid you having to come back. Is there a period of time that Ms. White that you would need to finish up the pool, take care of that wall, and while you're at it, just get a weed whacker and take care of that overgrowth too, so that does not become an issue. How much time do you need? Yes, if you just address me if you would.
Yes, sir. I was just inquiring, since the wall has been addressed and we have power washed it and cleaned it like very many times, what is it that needs to be done as far as the wall is concerned? Does it need to be painted inside and out? Is that what's left on the wall other than the pool?
From what I could see in the photograph, it appeared that the top of the wall was discolored.
Yes,
There was some
like
sort of
a rust kind of color.
sort of like there's like I don't know if it's like a mold or a mildew.
Yeah, it's not that.
Some,
It's like an orange kind of rust in certain spots, even after power washing. It just stays there.
okay. Is there a recommendation from the city how that ought to be addressed?
Can't tell that pressure washed it, but there's still the appearance of, like you said, that the top of the wall appears to be rusted, whatever is causing that, and then just a general discoloration down the front of the wall, the exterior side.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it open to Ms. White whether you choose to paint it, whether you choose to pressure wash it again, bleach it to kill any mold or mildew that may be there. There are products, if you're good at any hardware store, that can take care of rust. I'm not sure how, it looked like a concrete wall of some sort. I'm not sure how, maybe there was some sort of metal from the inside that was used to form the wall that might be rusting. I don't know what the circumstances are, but you can look into different products to correct that as well. So I'm going to leave this open to you to try to remediate.
Yes, sir. My only request, from Your Honor, would be that we have a firm date.
Yes, and I was trying to find a reasonable date. You reasonably expect to have everything done with 3 weeks. 3 weeks?
Yes.
Okay, so.
That I can make sure that it starts as long as I have to
Okay, and so 3 weeks, and I turn off my phone, so we have a calendar in front of them for the date.
Real quick, sir, I would just like to put on the record to remind the respondent that per Florida statute, they are required to contact the code officer when they bring the property into compliance. And I would also like to just mention about the pool. If the water is completely removed from the pool will have a tendency to pop up out of the ground, and then we have another issue. So I just wanted to tell you that so you don't automatically remove all the water from the pool, because then it becomes another issue with the code enforcement. So the remaining water in the pool still needs to be treated in some way or form. Mm-hmm. Our main our main issue is the harboring of the infestation and creating the hazard there. So if we need to make sure that you're adding chemicals that they can't pump. So we need to make sure that you're continually adding chemicals. Thanks, sir.
Okay, so we have a date then 3 weeks from today. Takes us to October 13, 2020 as the compliance date, and we will consider this matter tabled as a massive hearing to give you a chance to complete the efforts, the good faith efforts that I think are okay. Is there anything else that we need to cover tonight?
I have one last thing, sir.
Yes,
Sorry.
sir. No problem.
The very first case that we heard, the agenda and the agenda packet is correct. It's 118. The PowerPoint was incorrect, and we will fix the PowerPoint prior to saving it.
So it was not 188, it was 118.
Yes, sir. So that means the agenda packet is correct.
Very good. So the record will reflect that correction.
Thank you, sir.
If that is all we have, then we'll call this hearing adjourned. Thank you, everyone.